Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of ClueCon Weekly. Joining us this week is a whole team from a very interesting product named WebTrit, starting with Hugh Goldstein, which is the CEO, Andriy Zhylenko, which is an advisor and co-founder, and Yurii Cherniavskyi, which is a CTO and co-founder at WebTrit Incorporated. I'm very curious. I know what the product is, but I'll let you introduce yourselves and get started. Maybe you could start with Yurii. First of all, what is WebTrit?
WebTrit, yeah. WebTrit is a platform which allow uh, everyone to create their system with soft phone, which use WebRTC technology to connect to via WebRTC to connect to some regular SIP infrastructure. That's the idea. So it's actually Web3 system consists of several parts: application, server, and some other infrastructure to which it connects to. The-
Awesome. And yeah, sounds like it's a very interesting product for a few use cases I meet every day. So, what prompted you to start a company? Like, what's the problem that originated? Every company starts from, I have this problem, I can solve it, so I will solve it for someone else. So, what was the start?
Yeah, as for start, actually, we with Andrew start a project which used to be for education, online education, where people can connect with each other and improve their experience in negotiate with some advertising by other people. From this point, we try what is WebRTC is and how it's work. We see that it's great. It's really already solid for using in different cases of communication. Also, at the end of this project, we found that it will be great to have a possibility to create uh, not simple, fast application for any company which want to get cell phone application and use it within the company and allow it to use by their clients. I think, and exactly with experience of WebRTC and understanding how it works, we see that it will be great to create this cell phone not with some regular technology such as C, as it created, but use WebRTC for this, and then just create also the some server part which glue this WebRTC which we see, and it was a start point. And we get from it.
Since you're the CEO, it sounds like you're the right question to ask this. What's the value proposition of WebRit? Like, what do you think is the advantage over other options?
Yeah, thanks, Luca. Well, one of the many advantages is the ability to white label the app very quickly and relatively effortlessly. So we have a no-code configurator that you can use to customize the app, and then you can publish the app in the Apple and Google Play stores, and it looks like your app. It's you didn't have to develop it. You didn't, and additionally, while it's no code, it's also open source. So all of the code related to the app is published on GitHub. So if a company wishes to do so, they can customize it and change everything about it, how and add new business logic that's specific to their use case or gives them a competitive advantage. So there's a lot of best practices, I think, or that are built into WebTrit. There's elements of open source. There's elements of no code. There's also elements of CPaaS, because the back end of WebTrit that enables things like push notifications and the bridge between the WebRTC and the SIP signaling is managed as a service. So you don't have to run
Right.
that and operate it. It's provided by WebTrit. So there's a lot of strengths that we can offer, and uh, our first use case for this has really been focused on the telecommunications industry, which Andrew and I have spent decades in, and we think there is while there are other solutions out there, there's still a need we've identified and we've seen validation on, where telco service providers would like a brandable app that they can deliver to customers on the various smartphone platforms as well as the web. But the future beyond that could be much more developer-centric in that how can we enable voice and video as a feature being applied to different apps that aren't from the telco space or web experiences. So it may come full circle, as Yurii described. It started off as education, a negotiation platform that he was developing, and we found the first place for it within the telecom industry, but it may come back to things like telemedicine and other applications.
One thing, one thing that's a good segue into the next question I have is that in general, running your own WebRTC client is probably the hardest part of running a web-based telephony solution because with FreeSwitch, services like SignalWire, etc., you can usually get started pretty easily on the server side aspect. The client side is what gets you. So I think there's a lot of value in a product like this. Speaking of which, Andriy, since you're more of the technical systems person, what's the difference between the open source and the managed hybrid models of WebTrit? Like, how does open source meld with the managed service?
Thank you, Luca. So the idea behind WebTrit and what we try to bring to developers, so it's not just a collection of tools, and we all know how we start working with some open source projects. There are some instructions, some libraries, whole bunch of things, and then you are responsible for actually putting it all together. This is like me going to Home Depot when I need to do some construction project. Well, they have all the right tools and things. The problem is I don't exactly know which ones would I need, what is the correct sequence, and how to make sure it's actually stable after I assemble it. So in addition to just providing the tools, API, SDK, what we do, we give you a fully functional, ready-to-use application. We actually give you two. One is smartphone app, which is in Dart Flutter, so potentially can be converted into native application for Windows, macOS, and Linux, and even web application. And the other one is just a web application in Vue. So it's there, it's working, and it's not just an example. You can see some code examples on most of CPaaS pages, but no, this is not an example. This is a real application already used by multiple customers and developed and supported by our team. So a developer who needs to create, maybe it's a customized smartphone app for cloud PBX. Maybe it's a SaaS business which needs to run some kind of video chat capabilities specific to their application. They don't spend weeks and maybe months developing from those components and putting it all together. No, they get a fully working app with source code, and they only add things on top. Well, maybe they need to do some blockchain integration for user authorization, or maybe just specific way of chatting that it's not two-way chat, but three-way chat. But it's very easy to do that. And it saves a lot of time on the development of these mobile applications.
Good. Yeah, that's so. Since you have an open source model, I'm curious. Well, as you know, ClueCon Weekly tries to be about open source, about contributing, about helping. So I think the idea is how, for maybe Yurii, or maybe the best person being the CTO, what do you think is the best way to contribute to WebTrit? Like, how does a developer get started? Where, how does it go?
Yeah, actually, we have a WebTrit company on GitHub, and there you can see several applications which we published. One of them, WebTrit Phone, is called this way. And actually, everyone can check out this repository right now. And if they install Flutter SDK locally and run it, and connect to our demo server, which run for demo purpose for sure, make calls between each other, between colleagues, it's already there. So it could be done from this, from exactly this point. Then, actually, when we speak about mobile application, there are a lot of challenging exactly in mobile world when application go into background, operation system can shut down it somehow. Then networking change from Wi-Fi to LTE, and in all this case, we want to call the call to stay, and we try to reconnect with other networks and restore the state of the call. So, for example, when phone reconnect from Wi-Fi to LTE, we don't drop the call. Oh, sorry, we lost connection. The call is dropped. No, we have timeouts, and within this timeout, the server wait. Is application be able to reconnect from some other direction? And if it can do this, it reconnect and it restores the state of the call, and person can continue talking to each other. For sure, yeah, they have set timeout, and in some timeout it will be dropped. And I can say that it's more challenging feature which was implemented, because when we speak about just regular call from the browser to another browser with WebRTC, it's really simple in these days, because a lot of examples, a lot of regular tutorials about this. It's more when we start to connect with operation system, with their frameworks, because our application on iOS it's connected with CalKit, and with PushKit. On Android, it's connection with communication framework, with all services which application need to implement to be full-fledged application for communication on each platforms.
Nice.
And
if I may add there are two main streams of contributions to WebTrit. Well, first, it's of course going to GitHub and work in the project of our applications, develop additional functionality. We can pull requests so we can merge it. But there's also another side thing, because WebTrit, it can connect to virtually any third-party VoIP system or cloud PBX system. For instance, we did some tests with SignalWire. In order for this to work successfully, besides the basic SIP connectivity, we also need a way to extract user information for authentication or for retrieving list of user contacts. And that is done through a microservice called Adapter. And we have also on our GitHub page a basic framework application in Python Fast API, which allows connecting to any external system. But we need people to contribute, and we need more connectors for variety of PBX systems or popular VoIP systems or proprietary databases, which will then enable companies to quickly connect WebTrit to their infrastructure.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's also maybe not so complicated way someone can contribute as writing an adapter to something that's already existing. You don't need to know a lot. You just need to know specific information about the system. So why not? Sounds like it's a great starting point. Well, speaking of which, since we're on the topic, have you tested WebTrit with SignalWire or FreeSwitch?
We did. The only challenge we faced in the API which you have for endpoint management, there is no way to retrieve the endpoint password. So we couldn't do a fully native integration, which would just connect to existing data. But that's fine, because there are many systems which would work in a similar way. And we support that by the way that, okay, there is a SignalWire, but then information about endpoints or extension has to be extended with the data from additional system. And in our case, we can use Google Firestore or any other database. So in our test, we supplemented information about extensions, partially for information we retrieved directly from SignalWire for API, and partially with information stored in a proprietary database.
Good. Yeah. Then let's talk. Maybe we can get something going. And why not? We hope we can always add an endpoint or see if we can help in any way. So, well, Hugh, we touched on this a little, but just to be more precise, what do you think is the best, the company that will benefit the most from your product right now? Like, who should come call you? Well, everybody, but in particular.
Yeah, well, of course, everyone should contact WebTrit, but the initial product being a smartphone, a soft phone for Apple and Android devices is fully ready. So if a company is looking for a white label soft phone that they can distribute, that's going to enable their customers to make voice and video calls, then I think WebTrit has an instant solution that can provide a lot of value. That said, we'd like to speak to developers in general that would like to build voice and video into their applications and see how we can help them achieve their goals.
Good. Yeah, that's. I mean, I would add that again, this is not. Don't underestimate if you're trying to develop a web-based product. Don't underestimate how complicated it is to run the client side of it. So, even if you're doing integrations, even if you have a CRM and you want to give your customers the ability to dial calls or receive calls or whatever without needing a device and whatever, don't underestimate how hard it is to get that part done, because I've seen entire customers of SignalWire just grind to a halt building that part. So just get it, start from something well built, start from something standard based, and go from there. It sounds like it's your product is perfect for it.
Yeah, and often we hear from different types of service providers who, and many of them already have an app. They've done something, to address the need, obviously for their customers to have mobile voice and video extension of their UC system. But that app may not be, due to mergers and acquisitions, it may not be supported anymore, or there may be features that they want to add, or there may be economic drivers. So we're seeing a lot of different kinds of situations, but we're trying to provide a very flexible and customizable solution that fits the needs of these telcos.
Yeah, and in this way, exactly that we use Flutter, which allow within one code base developed application for different platforms. You don't need to have team for as it was previously.
Oh, nice.
In this way, Flutter really help and really speed up the whole process of developing.
Well, then sounds like it's a good fit for many projects. But so this is like a mandatory question on ClueCon Weekly. I asked the same question to everybody. What does your stack look like? What are your open source components? What languages are you using aside from Flutter? What is the backend looking like? Because many people are starting out, they're trying to build a product, and they thought just maybe learning something. So I try to let people know what professionals are using, so you know what you should be using too, which is very interesting. So, what's your stack?
Yeah. I am sure it's a question for me. Yeah, actually, we have documentation on the site with nice pictures with all this highlight of stacks, because we don't hide anything. On backend, we use Elixir as our core for processing WebSocket and all other HTTP requests. We use Phoenix library of WebRTC, of Elixir, and for integration WebRTC with SIP, we use Janus. It's one of the main part of the backend system. And when we go as for adapter, we have API and we have different implementation. One of our I can say default implementation, it also written in Elixir and Phoenix framework. And in application side, as we said, we have Flutter is main SDK for all application, and we also have we use for web, pure web, we use TypeScript and Vue.js. Is that it?
Nice. So I have to ask, as an Erlang, I'm one of the remaining 5 Erlang developers probably, and was never really tried Elixir. How are you finding working with Phoenix and Elixir? Like, I'm very curious.
It's great. In short, actually, yeah. Erlang, Elixir, it's the same. The same.
Erlang, Elixir.
In its spirit, it's this.
It's Erlang for sane people. Let's say this before, like it's people use Erlang a little crazy, and I know I'm one of them, but there's not many.
Yeah, actually, I start from Elixir, and then when I develop it, for sure, I look in some code on Erlang. Yeah, Elixir a bit much more usual for modern developer and modern framework and modern language style. But in general, the concepts, the principles, the same, and it's great. It's really all this BAM infrastructure, which BAM virtual system shows really great on performance, on resource use how low resource it need to process a lot of traffic, a lot of work. So in this case, it's great and it show really.
And do you think
really
the learning curve was steep? Like, did it take you a long time to be productive in Elixir?
Yeah, it's interesting question. I can say that it was problem not with Elixir. It was mostly problem with conceptual of functional programming.
Yeah.
Because I'm start from object-oriented programming, for some maybe procedure programming, but this switching and
sorry,
when it's made.
Just a side question: what language were you coming from? Because that might be relevant. Which language did you use before?
Java.
Oh, okay, so it's completely different. I can see that.
Yeah. It was Java, it was C, but main the big project was developed in Java. So yeah, it's per OOP, it's with its pluses and minuses, but in the result, I can say that I definitely recommend it to go when we speak about some server part, when we speak about high load, about stability. Yeah, it's Elixir, Erlang, and all this functional direction. Is definitely the right way to go.
Well,
Luca, and I just don't want to scare people who will be listening to this podcast, but they would think we would have to learn Elixir to actually use WebTrit in their company.
Okay,
Elixir,
the back end
is on the back end. Your front-end applications, it can be Flutter, it can be TypeScript, or it potentially can be anything else, because our goal was to create a very simple, very lightweight API for call control that a developer who creates an application, they don't have to learn about details of voice over IP, details of like SIP message headers and SDP and all that stuff, because it's usually complex. And as my experience shows, typically front-end developers, they absolutely hate learning this thing, which they know is not going to be beneficial for their next project. So the front-end parts, the applications you'll be developing with WebTrit, it can be any web application in any language you prefer, or any application which can be used somewhere else.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That's important to know. Okay, that's not really just that the application is not. You can write an application using various languages, not just Elixir. Although learning Elixir might be a very good thing. So why don't you try that? Well, speaking of development, one thing I'm always curious. So the other almost obligatory question for people who are from the WebRTC world is, what's your long-term vision for WebRTC, and what do you think WebRTC has in store for the next months and years of development? Do you feel like it's a mature technology? Do we need more support from browser and vendors? What do you think the landscape looks like?
Actually, I think that we need to for which sector or for which use case it's for some use case it's for sure mature technology, and it's great for calling, for conferencing. It's as for me, it's already all necessary parts already there. Yes, sure, we would like a better codecs with better compression but low performance observation, but if in some other future, I think we need to look in 3D virtual reality, and in this area something need be added to get this possibility for living in virtual reality world.
Yeah, I think the main challenge right now is exactly the codecs, and in general the ability to use less bandwidth. Any WebRTC call can be a little heavy on the bandwidth because everybody just negotiates Opus at 48,000, because why not? That's the full digital quality over a phone call.
Yeah, let's listen music together.
Yeah, we're not playing music to each other. And if we are, and by the way, I know Lorenzo Miniero from the Janus project very well, which you're using, and he has a side project where you're using Janus and WebRTC to let people play music together.
Yeah, I know.
And that is where you need Opus at 48,000. But for me to talk to you and have a good call, you don't need that. I think that's a very good starting point. Like, can we just get a few codecs that are A, supported by everything, and B, don't need 100 kilobits of bandwidth, That would be probably my first go-to. That's limiting adoption a little because every time you're trying to use WebRTC over low bandwidth, it really depends on the server side you're using. Like the backend has to be very good at managing that. So that's probably my first request. Like, can we finally get ILBC working or a few of the other low bandwidth codecs, and then the market will adopt them immediately. For sure.
Yeah, but I think that there are some draft in API how to allow users to choose this codecs. I see something like this. Yeah. In some blogs I read about, but it's not in stable WebRTC API yet, that's for sure. But in general, yeah, it's good catch. Yeah, I agree with you for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much the rest is good. The APIs are good. The statistics, the WebRTC stats you can do from the stream are good. There's a lot that really works well. Codecs are my only thing. We've certainly gone a far long way. Do you remember when we started WebRTC? I think we started playing with WebRTC when 2010ish, 11ish. Was it? It was.
Yeah.
Nothing ever worked, and you managed to get the signaling through, but then your browser wasn't speaking the same codecs as the other browser, even if you were in the same version of Chrome somehow. As a different build, so I have H.264, you don't, sorry, we can see each other. So that's gone a long way, and I'm super happy about it.
Yeah. Different SDP formats. Yeah, it was, man. It was very not so. That's why I say that for now WebRTC show it's really good. It's standardized. It's already have this version 1.0. It's great, and from this point
we can
move forward.
Expand. Well, Hugh, Yurii, and Andriy, it's a great product. It was a great chat, and I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca.
Are you participating in any conferences soon so people can come and hear you speak, or do you have any plans for trips around the world?
Well, Andriy will be presenting WebTrit at the TAD Summit in Paris, which is October 19th through 20th next month. Of course, this video will be online for a long time, so hopefully many others, and also ClueCon next summer.
Nice. So I'll say hello to the TED Summit friends from me. I can't join this time around, but I'll be there next year for sure. Cool. So thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
Luca.
Go check out WebTrit.com. It's a great WebRTC based client that also works on Android. It's got a very nice white labeling API. Works with a lot of systems, including SignalWire, and we'll look into making it work even better so you can use it seamlessly. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
For the rest of the people, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.